news stories for you. In the previous video, I told you an upcoming investigative report by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch about Western Tigray. The report has been released. We'll have a detailed look at this report. Secondly, US Navy has tested a high energy laser weapon system close to Ethiopia, Yemen, Somalia, and Djibouti in the Gulf of Aden. Is this a message from the US for Ethiopia, Yemen, and Iran? This weapon system is effective against drones too. It's undergoing testing, but some experts say it could be effective against drones. And lastly, viewers, as the date of termination of AGOA is approaching, the 1st of January, Ethiopian government has intensified its lobbying in the US. In the previous video, I told you about a statement released by pro-Ethiopian government Congresswoman Karen Bass. Then viewers, today another pro-Ethiopian government senator Jim Infoher was heard talking about AGOA. He is also calling upon the US government that it should roll back termination of AGOA. I have a video clip of Jim Infoho, US Republican senator. Before the three news stories, in the previous video I told you about the arrest of a journalist, Amir Aman, who was working for AP, Associated Press. Ethiopian government has confirmed his arrest because international pressure was building. International media was covering this arrest. Now Ethiopian government has issued a statement. The statement says that Amir Aman was working to promote Oromo Liberation Army. That is what I told you, that he was interviewing some members of OLA. Ethiopian government says that he was recording videos, he was recording interviews of OLA members, and Amir and two local journalists were providing this material to an Egyptian who is AP's correspondent in Nairobi. His name is Khalid. Ethiopian government says that Amir violated national emergency law. That is why he is in custody. So at least Ethiopian government is confirming the arrest of Amir Aman. Now, three news stories. Firstly, viewers, Western Tigray, a joint investigative report by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch about atrocities against Tigrayans in Western Tigray has been released. The two international bodies say that Amhara forces and Amhara militias are involved in killings, in detentions, and expulsion of Tigrayans from Western Tigray. Amnesty and HRW contacted people by phone. They remotely interviewed people in Humra, Adebai, and Rayan towns of Western Tigray. And they say that thousands have been pushed out of Western Tigray towards Central Tigray. And thousands are detained as well. There are detention centers in Adebai and other places where these Tigrayans are being detained. Amhara militia members are involved in atrocities against these Tigrayans. And in the last week of November, around 10,000 Tigrayans were pushed out of Western Tigray towards Central Tigray. And in total, 1.2 million Tigrayans have been expelled so far. This number is exaggerated views. 1.2 million is not the population of Tigrayans in Western Tigray, I think. So this number is not based on facts, I think. Overall, the report is putting the entire blame of atrocities on Amhara militias, Amhara forces. There is no mention of Eritrean forces. There is no mention of Ethiopian National Defense Forces in this report. So it's a war between Amhara and Tigray. Western Tigray is disputed territory between Amhara region and Tigray region. Lastly, the two bodies are calling upon UN Human Rights Council, which is due to meet tomorrow, to establish a mechanism, an international independent mechanism to investigate into human rights abuses being committed in Western Tigray. I told you in the previous video that release of this report could be linked to tomorrow's UN Human Rights Council session. So this report will be discussed in tomorrow's session, and we might see some major decisions at tomorrow's UN Human Rights Council meeting, which has become a sort of Africa versus the West session, because Ethiopian government is rallying the support of African countries which are part of UN Human Rights Council. And Ethiopian government wants these African countries to support Ethiopian government's narrative in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow's session is going to be a very key one. Africa will not support any sanctions, any measures against Ethiopian government. What will the remaining countries do, the West, the EU countries? I'll update you tomorrow about Human Rights Council session due to be held tomorrow. Secondly, viewers, US Navy has tested a weapon in the Gulf of Aden, which is close to Somalia, Yemen, then obviously Ethiopia as well, Eritrea, Djibouti. This weapon is said to be effective against drones too. Why did US Navy choose this site of testing, which is close to Yemen, Ethiopia, and a bit at a distance, Iran is there as well? Is it a message for Ethiopia, Yemen, and Iran from the US? US Navy says that site of the test was chosen because of its geography, climate, and strategic significance. This word, strategic significance, tells us that obviously this test is a message from the US for those countries in the region with which the US is not having good relations these days. Now, lastly, viewers, as the date of termination of AGOA trade benefit agreement between the US and Ethiopia is approaching, Ethiopian government has intensified its lobbying in the US. On the one hand, Ethiopian government says hands off Ethiopia. On the other, it is intensifying its lobbying efforts. In the previous video, I told you about a statement of US Congresswoman Karen Bass in support of Ethiopian government. After that, Jim Infoho, another pro-Ethiopian government senator, Republican senator, spoke. He is also calling upon the US government that it should roll back termination of AGOA. Watch the video showing Jim Infoho's speech about AGOA US-Ethiopia trade benefit agreement. Thank you for watching.
Support Prime Minister Abiy. Now, Prime Minister Abiy, we might remember, has been a prime minister in Ethiopia for a long period of time. I can remember standing many years ago on this floor and lauding the virtues of him and what he has done for this country. And the fact that he is probably could be arguably the best educated prime minister in that country at any time. He didn't mention a word about the international challenges that he faces. They were there to support him democratically. We're talking about the Chinese now. Democratically elected leader in Ethiopia. That's exactly what we should be doing, but we aren't. China is. We know that China and Russia are encroaching through Africa. They want nothing more than to create a division between the United States and Ethiopia and in countries across the continent. And the good news is, if you can call it that, there is time before the Biden administration cancels AGOA benefits, and that would be for Ethiopia on January 1st. But the door is closing, and January 1st is on us now. So the Biden administration should take real steps to undoing the sanctions against the democratically elected government of Ethiopia and roll back the termination of AGOA benefits. And that would make a much happier Christmas for us and for Ethiopia. And with that, I yield the floor. I suggest